We're back. It's the Horns Up, talking Texas, Fisher, DeSopos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider. Big news for what is soon to be our former conference, the Big 12. Colorado
See ya.
is leaving the Pac-12, so we don't know what will happen with them, really, them being the Pac-12 and returning to the Big 12 with Deion Sanders in 2024. We're leaving. We're going to the SEC. It's in the rearview mirror, but I want to see the Big 12 left in a good state, and I still want it to be a conference, whereas I think the Pac-12 is in serious danger of being dissolved. I think that we might see Oregon jump ship to the Big 10. That's like my next prediction and domino to fall.
Yeah, I mean, to follow suit with USC and UCLA, Oregon, I think consistently has been probably the best team in that conference over the last 10 years. Is that fair to say?
Oregon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, I would say so. I mean, they were good last
year.
Them
or Utah, honestly.
Them or Washington.
Yeah.
Like them in Washington.
Washington made the playoff.
With Browning, yeah. And they were good last year. They obviously beat us in the bowl game. Washington, Oregon, and Utah have been the most consistent. Like UCLA has been good. They haven't been bad, UCLA, but they've had ups and downs. Cal has either been kind of mid or not good. USC was mid, was good with Darnold, mid for a long time with Clay Helton, and now is kind of obviously returned to prominence. But they still lost to Utah twice last year.
Mm-hmm.
So the Utes, the Ducks, and the Huskies are all, I would say, the most consistent teams over the past decade in the Pac-12. Just a gut check. I think Utah, honestly, if the Pac-12 does dissolve, which is honestly, as the days go on, seem more and more likely, I think Utah to the Big 12 would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I could see it happening for sure. Yeah, if Pac-12 dissolves, then all those teams are going to look for conferences that can keep them relevant. You know, I'd be curious to see what happens to the Arizona and Arizona State schools. What's Stanford going to end up doing? I could see them, joining the Big Ten as well.
Mm-hmm. I could see them in Oregon doing a Big Ten, because Stanford, while they haven't been as relevant the past couple of years, there's a lot of times where they are relevant in basketball and in baseball as well. Like they compete strongly in other sports,
right
outside of the football arena.
Or does a new conference arise? Because like, are we really going to sit here and say that it's just going to be 4 big conferences? SEC, ACC, Big 12, Big 10. There's a lot of colleges out there, and I mean, I think they want to keep the Power 5, moniker alive, especially with how big our country is. I mean, obviously, you can't have Pac-12 schools going to the ACC; it just doesn't make sense geographically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Same with SEC. Really, the only conferences you go to is Big 12 and Big 10, and that's still pretty far for a lot of these California Pacific Coast schools. So if they could figure out a way to salvage the Pac-12, then it'd be interesting. Maybe adding San Diego State to the mix. I mean, that's something that's, an easy fix because they've got such a good basketball program, and their football's, not been terrible either. Pretty good.
Yeah, you could add them. You could also add Boise.
Yeah, Boise State.
New Mexico for hoops.
Yeah, UNLV maybe.
Yeah, I'm looking at there.
That's. I mean, like, you're kind of really just picking through the trash at that point.
Fresno.
Yeah, Fresno State.
Gonzaga.
Yeah, but they would have to. Yeah, I mean, I guess how many non-football schools are in the Power 5?
I don't think any.
Does the ACC have any?
No, they all have football teams.
Well, there you go.
Wake, UNC, Duke, they all have teams. I mean, Gonzaga is so good at basketball, though, that like you could salvage the Pac-12 hoops. Pac-12 is more as good as the football. Like USC obviously has been great football, for the existence of college football. And Stanford and Oregon have been really fun teams. When I think of the Pac-12, I always think of hoops for some reason. Like UCLA basketball, Arizona basketball, like the basketball programs by and large are more national figures, at least in the last 15 years. So I think adding a Gonzaga to the mix in hoops would be interesting. If you're trying to like find ways to salvage and like you're picking through the trash, trying to find a box of French fries that's kind of untouched by the flies.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they just have this crippling thing working against them where they're airing their games when people are going to sleep on the East Coast. I mean, that's just never going to be able to be combated unless you want to start your games, crack of dawn, do it earlier. But that's really what they're, up against when it comes to kind of keeping the conference alive. And at the end of the day, these these teams want to make as much money as possible with their broadcasts and where they air their games. And so if you move over to a bigger conference that has a bigger TV deal and can get you more revenue for your university, you're going to take that. And obviously, keep your team more competitive in a more competitive conference.
Yeah, you're never gonna win with the East Coast viewership and the Central Time viewership unless you started playing those teams. Because even if you moved, like, okay, let's say USC started their football games at 1 p.m. every Saturday. It's 4 p.m. on the East Coast. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, these teams are playing then. Like, you can't, like, it's the East Coast is Big Ten in the North. On tour as you get south, it's ACC and SEC. Like and those teams play then.
You know what conferences kind of remind me of? Kind of reminds me of, okay, the overarching government is the NCAA. That's the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
And then each conference has their own state government, right? They abide by their own rules. They kind of have their own, people in place in power. It kind of reminds me of, but if you really want what's best for the country, if you really want what's best for college football, maybe you do a situation where kind of like interleague play does in football and in the NFL and like they do it in Major League Baseball, where each team from each conference has to play at least one other team from every conference in the Power Five throughout the season.
Yeah, it's a little weird that it's
like your preseason games are a little bit more competitive and kind of get more viewership and eyes around.
Well, we go to the Big House next year. Like we play Michigan, we play Ohio State. Like we're doing it, but we schedule those games on our own.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, like, scheduling Colorado to play against Penn State, right? And then also playing against Georgia, and then that's actually like a requirement for your schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would
maybe
like
not
that.
all five, maybe not like four, because that's 4 games, at a conference that you need to fit into your schedule. That would maybe call for expanding your season, or just taking away conference games.
LSU and Florida State are playing this year, which is exciting. They played it last year, so they have that again this year. But I would love it if it was a more mandated, like you're saying, Nick, like you have to do this. Like Georgia, you have to. I know you play a tough SEC schedule, but at least suit up against Oregon like you did last year, or suit up again. If you don't want to play Oregon again, suit up against Utah. Like let's see how Utah comes out of the gate against the Georgia team. Let's see how Utah comes out of the gate against A&M, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but they're already doing that. I mean,
it is being done, but I feel like there could be a more organized way.
Yeah. I think those universities, especially the ones that are not consistently in the college football playoff, like, are where you're probably going to get the most pushback, right? A school like Colorado, a school like Deion is starting his tenure there, and he doesn't want to have the toughest road, not yet, right? He wants to get there and at least know that his team can compete from a recruiting standpoint, and then maybe introduce something like Nick is proposing. Like, I just think that there's a lot of teams that would be like, yeah, I'd rather not play like a team from the Big Ten, the SEC, if I'm in the Big 12. Like, maybe I'll play one of them, maybe, if we want, or if we don't want to, because we want to have a tune-up game instead before we play the games that really, really matter. Because as long as the conferences exist in the college football format, like, it's important to win your conference.
Yeah, you have to. Yes, you have to win your comp. Like that's like anything. Like before we got on the show, we were talking a little baseball. Like the Twins would be in last place in the AL East, but that doesn't really matter to them. They don't care. Like all they have to worry about is winning the AL Central, and you're in the playoffs, and then it's anybody's dance. Like the thing I'm looking at, I was pulling up some of the exciting games that are potentially coming up, and I could show you guys here on the presenter. Find it. Yes, there we go. Like, obviously, these are the exciting games coming up. Bama, Texas, we know that. We've talked about. We will talk about that ad nauseum. I just mentioned FSU versus LSU, which is a really good game last year. Ohio State this time goes to Notre Dame. Freeman's first game as a coach last year was against Ohio State. They played them pretty tight. So, I mean, you're Notre Dame and you play USC, you play Clemson. You have a lot of tough games if you're Notre Dame all of a sudden. And we've kind of, poo-pooed their schedule and their scheduling over the past few years and said they've had a cupcake schedule and an easy walk in to the playoffs a lot of the times. But all of a sudden you have Ohio State, Clemson, and USC. And if you're Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, with your new quarterback, Sam Hartman, if you win these games, you're going to be in a position to go to the college football playoff for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt.
You got Notre Dame, Clemson, like I just mentioned, Washington at Michigan State. This one is similar to, these two teams play every year in North Carolina, South Carolina. I think could be tripping. Florida at Utah at Baylor. Utah is like I think Utah is scheduling these two games. Like, okay, these are not the cream of the crop in either of their conferences, but they're both really competitive teams in Baylor and Florida.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're Utah and you go, nobody takes us seriously. Like at the top of the show, Nick was talking Pac-12 and Oregon is the most consistent team. And honestly, like Utah. But people always forget to throw Utah and give them the respect they deserve. And the Utes have been really good the past 5 years and maybe even longer. And scheduling these games, hey, if you go into Baylor or you go and you get the win against Florida at home, and then a couple weeks later you go into Waco and you win that game. Yeah, you're not beating OU, Texas at their best, or they're defending a Big 12, K-State or TCU. But Baylor was a really strong team, and they were in the Big 12 championship a couple years ago and won it. Florida, they're not the Florida of the mid-2000s, but it's still the Florida Gators. So these are really – they're doing the right thing because they have to get that notoriety. And it's just another example of like the Pac-12 not getting the respect or not enough eyes on it. This game's kind of a joke. West Virginia, Penn State. A&M versus Miami could be very telling for two programs that are trying to get back to it. UCF Boise State is cute. This is actually, I don't know. I know I've been kind of, juicing Minnesota a little bit lately, but this is a really interesting game too for North Carolina, who also has high expectations. And then
I like Oregon Tech.
Oregon Tech is fun.
Really
Tech
fun.
could be decent. Yeah. And that was just what On3 had. As the presenting.
Cool.
Is done.
Yeah. I'll be watching a lot of those.
Yeah. Other news for the Horns, Gary Patterson mulling a return. I think that'd be massive.
Yeah, you can never have enough firepower on your staff, and you saw what he did for our defense last year. I think we were one of the best defenses in the Big 12, if not the best, and it wasn't a coincidence that it was the year he joined the staff after having a down year the year before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's paramount to bring Gary Patterson back, like you're saying. If everyone gives you their 2 cents in the world, you'll have $400 million, and you just have to Sark what to do with the money at that point. And having PK and Patterson working together again on a defense that is pretty much, we lost guys to the draft, but a lot of we have Anthony Hill coming in. I think that'd be really helpful to have a guy like Gary Patterson as well in his year. Barron Sorrell had a great year. Jalen Ford had a great year. There's a lot of guys in the defensive backfield that had really strong years, and we're bringing Catalan. Getting all these guys in the mix with Gary Patterson in a year where our defense could easily be the best in the Big 12 is going to be big, and keeping that continuity, because you don't want to see guys are always going to leave your staff in college football. Like, we're just pretty much counting down the days till we lose to Shar Choice. We know it. He's a great coach. He's well liked and well respected. Like, someone will give him an offensive coordinator job if it's not us, and someone will ultimately give him a head coaching job. Like, he won't be at Texas forever. So there's always guys moving and shaking on your staff, but having as much continuity as possible, especially for the young defense that performed really well for the first time in a long time. Our defense wasn't the issue, like we're saying. Having Gary Patterson there is pretty huge. Yep,
I agree.
Daniel,
is it kind of like weird, like long term? Gary Patterson's 63. Do we feel like he wants to coach as a head coach somewhere else, and he just didn't feel like they
Passing
were
the
the
time.
available offers that he wanted to entertain.
I think he's in a situation where he
Could he be
doesn't want to
done?
jump. No. I think it's a situation. I mean, I think he's sticking around because he wants to coach eventually again, right? Maybe it's a time to take some time off, and not stress about being a head coach, and focus on what's important. Maybe enjoy your family life a little bit. Obviously, Austin's a great city to chill at for a little bit, but I think he's in a situation where he doesn't want to just take any job, right? Like we saw that with Les Miles, like we saw that with Herm Edwards, right? Like you saw that with Kevin Sumlin after Texas A&M. Like you don't want to just take any job that could literally just cement you into the ground. Because when you go from one university and you take so much time off, you become irrelevant, and then you take a random mid-major school that's not really contending and not competitive, you're really kind of just putting the nails inside your own coffin. Like he might wait for a really big opportunity to open up. Maybe, let's say, man, I don't know, God forbid, Harbaugh wants to leave and go to Miami or go to the NFL, right? And like, let's say, the Miami job opens up or something like that, like those are jobs that are something you wait for. You don't want to just take an Arizona State. You don't want to just take a Wyoming. You don't want to just
I don't know if he
take
has
a
that
Kansas.
choice anymore. Like he's 63.
He went to
Saban is in his 70s.
Saban's a winner. It's Nick Saban.
Do you know where he went to college?
Off the top of my dome, Gary Patterson.
He went to Kansas State, and he's from Kansas. Now, I imagine that feels like a job that would be really enticing to him. It's within a conference he's already coached at. It'd be returning closer to where he grew up and where he went to college, his alma mater. It's a competitive team. It's a competitive program. Chris Kleiman is 30-20 in his going into his 5th year as the head coach for the Kansas State Wildcats. Obviously, I think the expectations for them this year are relatively high. But 30-20 is not a fantastic record for his tenure there. So I don't know what the pressure is like just in the murmurs and conversations in Manhattan around their current coach, and what would happen if they were only to win 7 games this season, as opposed to getting to the Big 12 title game or winning, 9 games, which I feel like is the expectation that a lot of people have for the Wildcats. Maybe that's one that he's kind of holding out for to figure out what goes on there. Because obviously we've seen that happen time and time again, where a coach who played somewhere, he also started his coaching career there. Gary Patterson did as a GA. So that would be interesting.
K-State they're out of conference guys, or UCF in Missouri. So they have some fun ones too. Kleiman, he went 10-4 last year. Like, and the 4th loss is in the bowl game, and he won the Big 12 championship game. Like, I think his job is pretty safe. And if you're Gary Patterson, like, you have to stay relevant by coaching. Like, I'm sure, like, look, yeah, he would love one of those jobs, and I think he did a really great job at TCU. And it's probably a bit of a sting to see in the first year you're gone, them go to the national champ, whether they got crushed or not, go to the national championship game. But he should still be relevant. If Texas is great and he's a part of that, you may not get the head coaching job you want, but he could get a defensive coordinator job, or he at a really good school. He could then find himself on Bama staff as a DC, or working with Kirby Smart. And look what that did for Sark, right? That was really beneficial for Sark. It got him the head coaching job at Texas. What it did for Bill O'Brien, it got it back to the NFL as the offensive coordinator for the Patriots. So he's kind of got to rework himself up a little bit before he can go get those big name jobs. But I think coming back to this tab is important. Last thing I want to discuss with y'all is, just want to quickly throw this up. New recruit offensive lineman Danny Cruz, big boy, and seemingly a pretty funny boy as well. He was seen rocking the shirt after his commitment. It says I'm horny with the Texas, with the
That's
Texas
awesome.
logo. He's
That's
rocking this around campus. And you know what? Like,
Gotta love high schoolers.
but I don't know. I feel like we're less grovelly when it comes to recruiting, like begging these guys, needing these guys. Like, guys actually want to come here and have fun. Like, look, there's a time where you have to, shut up and, get to work and play and result on the field, like, and win games. But like, we want guys to come here and enjoy Austin like we enjoyed Austin, come here and have a blast and enjoy their college experience and love being a member of the team. And it seems like, a lot of these guys are excited to be here. Like, I see some of the recruits on Twitter tweeting at like other recruits who haven't decided yet. Like, they're actively recruiting, they're actively enjoying like the recruiting process, and seeing Danny Cruz come in here and just throw a shirt on like that and rock it is hilarious. Like, you want your offensive linemen to be like that.
Mhm.
These fun-loving guys, and then they hit the trenches and they mean absolute business. Like, look at Jason Kelsey and the Eagles offensive line. They made a Christmas album. Like, and then they're the best offensive line in the league. So it's real fun. That was a good one. So
I think Sark allows for that in a way that, the former coaches that we've had have not necessarily allowed for that kind of fun to be had by our players.
It's college football.
It is college football. Yeah, that's right.
It's college football. Like, you're not a professional. I mean, I know you're getting paid now, but you're not a pro. And you're right. Like, Herman was piss test. Charlie was scared from the jump. Like,
some of it's just a different approach that these guys took. And a lot of it has to do with the pressure that you have to retain the job once you become the head coach for the Texas Longhorns. And
yeah,
I hope that this method pays off, because it seems like the guys are excited to be there, like you're saying. And it's not, it's being displayed and it's being marketed in a way that it wasn't prior. Because it's not to say that any of those guys that were Texas Longhorns before Steve Sarkisian's regime were not excited about being here and were not excited about donning the burnt orange and white. But it is. It excites the fans and excites us, of course, talking about the team, and it makes us feel like these guys love playing football and love playing for each other and love playing for the university, which is exactly what you want to see. But again, I mean, it's just beating the drum. Got to get it done. Got to get it done. Field.
But you get it done by like guys being boys. Like, how many times have you heard other athletes say like, we were all friends and it helped our play? Like, we hung out, we were cool with each other, we liked being around each other
all the time.
Like, yeah, it's all the time.
It's family. You fight hard for your brothers.
Yeah, you like a relationship matters more. Like, it's just, the long and short of it.
Fight harder when you're winning too.
Yeah. Yes, you eventually have to win. All right, we'll see everybody next week. Just wanted to talk a little Big 12 realignment. It's exciting that Colorado's going to be there. Happy that Deion's going to be there. Keep some eyes on what it is soon to be our old conference. And hopefully Colorado can make a nice comeback under Deion Sanders. There's already some recruits going there as well. Huck 'em horns. We'll see you guys next time.